This is Jarrod Horak, and this is my final look at the 2023 Breeders' Cup Classic. I've taken a couple of looks at the race so far. I did an early video prior to the pre-entries, and then I did a video after the pre-entries came out. Now the field has been drawn, and I'm going to go through the field and give out my top choice in the 2023 Breeders' Cup Classic. If you're interested in purchasing my annual 2-day Breeders' Cup full card analysis at Santa Anita Park this year, head on over to the runawayhorse.com for more details. That's my personal website. I've been covering this Breeders' Cup for many years, a lot of success over the years. I cover Southern California racing all the time, so I'm hoping to have a very big 2023 Breeders' Cup. So go over to the runawayhorse.com for more details, and you can also purchase my 2023 Breeders' Cup full cards at todaysracingdigest.com. My Breeders' Cup Friday full card is complete, and my Breeders' Cup Saturday full card will be complete tomorrow, and I'll have all that information up and ready to purchase. But the Friday card is done now, and I'm still working on Saturday. Now, if you're interested in the annual Breeders' Cup Complete Digest at todaysracingdigest.com, go over to todaysracingdigest.com, click on their Breeders' Cup tab. You'll find their Breeders' Cup Complete Digest. Now, they've been covering Southern California racing since 1970. They've been covering the Breeders' Cup since the beginning in 1984. They are experts in Southern California racing, and that Complete Digest will include past performances, analysis, wagering strategies, pace, speed ratings, performance ratings, and much more. So go over to todaysracingdigest.com on their Breeders' Cup tab to learn more, and you can also read all of my 2023 Breeders' Cup handicapping articles on their Breeders' Cup page. I've probably covered around 30 articles so far. I'm still writing some more, and I covered angles for all 14 Breeders' Cup races. I did a series on sires to watch, jockeys, trainers, horses to watch, and much more. So head on over to todaysracingdigest.com on their Breeders' Cup page to read all of my handicapping articles for the 2023 Breeders' Cup. And now we're going to do the Breeders' Cup Classic, 9th race, Santa Anita Park, Saturday, November 4th, 2023. Grade 1, $6 million Breeders' Cup Classic for 3-year-olds and up, 1.25 miles on the main track. And number 1, Arcangelo, has been scratched, so he is out of this race, and he would have been one of the horses that took a lot of money. So now Zandon will be the first horse we'll talk about for trainer Chad Brown, and Frankie Dettori is going to ride this one. And for Zandon, he's one that's just so consistent. You got to remember him from the Kentucky Derby last year when he finished 3rd, and then he was able to just run in so many big races and just hit the board in a lot. He did win the Grade 1 Bluegrass Stakes, but then after the Kentucky Derby, he was hitting the board in the Travers, the Pennsylvania Derby, races like that. And then this year he kept hitting the board again, like in the Met Mile, the Whitney, and then in the Woodward, he got an easy field. He was just looking like the best horse on paper, and he was able to win that one nicely at 1 1/8 at Aqueduct on October 1st. He likes to run from off the pace, and just looking at the consistency of this horse, I think if you're playing exotics, you have to consider him in there. He just always shows up and runs his race. White Abarrio for trainer Rick Dutrow, and Irad Ortiz Jr. is going to ride, and he's one that could work out a good inner tactical trip in here. Now, the interesting thing about this one is he's always been one that loved Gulfstream Park. So Gulfstream Park was the oval that he just absolutely loved, and when he ran there, he typically won. But when he left Gulfstream Park, and this is when Safi Joseph Jr. had him, when he was not running at Gulfstream Park, he wasn't winning. Now, he had been competitive in some races, but then Rick Dutrow took over as his trainer, and he was outstanding last time in that Grade 1 Whitney. In that race, Giant Game, an overmatched front runner, set the pace. White Abarrio was perched in second. Giant Game gave it up. White Abarrio took over, and he just dominated that race. He won by more than 6 lengths, earned a strong Today's Racing Digest speed rating there. If he can run back to that number at 1.25 miles, certainly going to be right there at the end, if not the horse to beat. But typically in this race, you see a lot of horses, they already have good form at 1.25 miles. And his only 1.25 mile race was in the Kentucky Derby in 2022, and he was no threat. So he still has to prove he can go 1.25 miles. He still has to prove that Whitney was for real, but his last workout that he had prior to this race was outstanding. So he seems like he's coming up to the race in good order. Should work out a good trip. We'll just have to see if he can handle the distance. Missed the Cut is probably overmatched in here for trainer John Sadler, and he's one that won last time out at 1.5 miles on dirt in a grade 3 at Del Mar. I just don't think that he matches up with these horses. Derma Sotogake is next, and he's one that really looked good in the UAE Derby earlier this year. But then last time, and this is a while ago since we've seen him, in the Grade 1 Kentucky Derby, he ended up finishing 6th in an 18-horse field. So we don't know what we're going to get from this one, his first start since May. I kind of liked him a little bit in the Derby. He was one of my contenders that I was using in tickets. But I just think that this might be a bit too much for him to overcome the layoff. And we just don't know where he fits. He does like to run up on the pace based on that UAE Derby. And in the Kentucky Derby, he wasn't able to run that kind of race because the pace was just too quick. Saudi Crown is one that should impact the pace for trainer Brad Cox. Florin Giroux is going to ride the son of Always Dreaming. For this one, you just don't know if he's going to be able to handle 1.25 mile distance. He's run well in all of his starts. Won his first 2 starts, then he just missed in his 3rd start in the Dwyer. And then in his next start at Saratoga in the Jim Dandy, he was right there with Forte at the end. That was a bit of a controversial race, some bumping and going on in that race. But then he broke through with a nice win in the slop in the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby, wiring the field last time. I don't think he's going to be able to control the pace this time at this longer distance because you have Arabian Night in here as well. Clapton is next for trainer Chad Summers. Tyler Gaffleone's going to ride. And he's one that's getting better. I just don't think he's this good. He won the Lucas Classic last time out, but that was the first time he really broke through and won a race like this. He did win a Grade 3 at Gulfstream Park in the spring. I just don't think he's going to be of Grade 1 quality, more of a Grade 2, Grade 3 type horse, and I think he's a bit over his head. Ushba Tesoro is certainly capable of winning this one. This horse coming in from Japan, and he's won his last 6 starts, including the Dubai World Cup. And then after the Dubai World Cup in March, he's run once, and that was on September 27th in France and in Japan, and he won that race. So this Japanese shipper certainly is one that can make an impact in this Breeders' Cup Classic. He's been a little headstrong working out, and he's been acting up when they've been trying to school him at the gate. So we'll have to see how he acts. You're really not going to know until they get into the post parade and he gets into the gate, but he's going to have to need to settle down to have his best shot. Senor Buscador, a horse that probably can't win this race, but if you're playing exotics, I think you probably want to consider this one underneath. He's one that he's run some quality races. He was 3rd in the Grade 1, awesome again. He won the Grade 2 San Diego earlier this year. He was closing and finishing 4th at 1.25 miles in the Pacific Classic. So look for him late and passing some horses. And if you're playing tries, supers, super high 5, Senor Buscador is a horse you could use. Dreamlike is getting better for Todd Pletcher, the son of Gunrunner. I just don't think that he's this classy. He was getting to Saudi Crown last time out at 1.125 miles in the slop in the Grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby when he was beaten by a half length. This one, as a maiden, he was a close 3rd in the Wood Memorial, and then he broke his maiden after that race, and then he disappointed in an allowance race, and then the Pennsylvania Derby was his big effort. He's going to have to run the race of his life to threaten these. Bright Future, probably a better shot in here for Todd Pletcher with John Velasquez aboard. The son of Curlin really improved at Saratoga over the summer, winning at a 1.125 mile optional claiming race by more than 4 lengths, and then clicking right back in the Jockey Club Gold Cup at 1.25 miles last time out. Those last 2 speed ratings give him a look, but this is a better field than he has been facing. He's going to face some real quality speed horses that aren't going to give it up easily. Arabian Night, the most lightly raced horse in this race. He has the most upside, and this is a son of Uncle Mo, Astrology, the dam sire. Flavien Prat's going to ride for trainer Bob Baffert, and in his career debut, he dominated on the Breeders' Cup undercard at 7 furlongs last year at Keeneland. So he was just debuting on the Breeders' Cup last year, and he won by 7 lengths, a flashy win. Second career start, Oaklawn Park in the Grade 3 Southwest Stakes in the slop, dominated that one by 5 lengths. They pulled him off the Kentucky Derby trail and pointed him to a late summer fall campaign. And he came back in the Grade 1 Haskell, and in the Haskell, his first start since January, so he was off from January 28th to July 22nd, and he came back. There was a overmatched front runner setting the pace, and Arabian Night just took off after that horse, and he was able to put that one away rather easily, but then he could not keep at bay Go Rocket Ride and Mage in there, your Kentucky Derby winner. They went by him, but Arabian Night, in the early stretch, looked like he wasn't even going to hit the board, but then he just kept coming and coming after the horses again. And then after, he wasn't losing any ground, obviously, he was gaining some ground on those two front runners late. And then the gallop out, he galloped out in front. So that showed that he needed that race and he was going to improve in his next start, and he did exactly that. The Grade 1 Pacific Classic, he was able to get out there and control the pace, turn away, slow down Andy, and then win that race by a half length over Go Rocket Ride. So Arabian Night is one that excellent efforts in all of his career starts. His best races should be in front of him. He's training well, and he should be all over the pace. Proxy for trainer Mike Stidham with Joel Rosario aboard. This one's so consistent. He's kind of like a Zandon type. He just goes out there and he gives his all the time. He's versatile, like he was in the race at Monmouth, where he dominated that one at 1 1/8 in July when he was able to set the pace. But typically he likes to come from off the pace. He's proven at Santa Anita, 1 1/4 big cap. He was a close second earlier this year. And then last time out, he was a close second in the Jockey Club Gold Cup at Saratoga. So Proxy likes to run outside horses, and he's got the outside post, and I would not be shocked if Proxy ended up hitting the board. So there's multiple ways you can go in here. If you think the pace is going to be fast in here, you could certainly go for horses like Zandon, maybe White Abarrio getting first run. If you think the pace is going to be slower, a horse like Saudi Crown could get loose, or Arabian Night, if one of those two horses, for whatever reason, don't show early speed. Proxy from off the pace certainly can be used somewhere in there. The Japanese horse, Ushba Tesoro, you're just not quite sure what to do with. More than capable of winning this race, though. But if I'm going to give out my top choice here, and I will, it's going to be Arabian Night for trainer Bob Baffert. I've always liked this one. When I started my Kentucky Derby list last year, he was the original top choice. Then after the Triple Crown Series, I did a Beyond the Crown Series at todaysracingdigest.com. And in those articles, I put Arabian Night back on top as my top 3-year-old in the country after the Triple Crown Series. And I like that he won against older horses at 1 1/4 last time out. His races are well spaced. He's got good speed, training well. Bob Baffert's won this race multiple times. As a matter of fact, the last, I believe 4 3-year-olds to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, Bob Baffert trained them all. And I think this 3-year-old is certainly one that can jump up and run his best career race in the 2023 Breeders' Cup Classic. So I'm going to go with Arabian Night as my top choice. But like I said, if you're playing exotics, take a look at Proxy, take a look at Senor Buscador, and then take a look at Zandon. I think definitely one, if not more, of those horses could end up finishing somewhere in the trifecta, superfecta, or super high 5. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you like this horse racing content. And that will do it for the Breeders' Cup coverage this year. Thanks for watching all of my Breeders' Cup videos. And keep going over to todaysracingdigest.com. I'm going to be posting more handicapping articles as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup. I'm going to do a foreign horse report for Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday, so make sure to check that out at todaysracingdigest.com on their Breeders' Cup page in the coming days. Until I see you next time, good luck at the races and good luck in the 2023 Breeders' Cup.